So as my family who know and love me know wonderful factoids about me, one of which is I have a horrible sense of direction, and they will tell you that I will not ever make it anywhere unless Waze or Google Maps is fully engaged. It is true. I even get lost going to simple places. And you would think that after living in Macon for 2 years, I wouldn't quite need my Google Maps because, well, Macon is not that big of a town. I still frequently need it. In fact, I use it on a daily and consistent basis. And I bring this up because Google Maps helps. Waze help. It tells you if you're going the wrong direction. It says turn around and rerouting. If you, like me, will frequently miss a turn, as it says, turn is a-coming in a few hundred feet, and then you get distracted by a child and you miss it and it reroutes you. Again, you eventually do make it there. But wouldn't it be interesting in our own lives if we had something as powerful as Waze telling us where to go, what direction it is that we need to turn on, or maybe reroute ourselves. Our Haftorah for our special Shabbat, Shabbat Shuvah, opens with Shuvah Yisrael ad Adonai Elohecha. Return, O Israel, unto the Lord thy God. Why? The verse continues, for you have stumbled in iniquity. Well, wouldn't it be wonderful if there was, I don't know, some app as we are attempting to engage in our Shuvah process back to Adonai that said exactly which way to go and where to turn. The liturgy, on one hand, makes it sound like it's, easy, black and white, crystal clear. It says it, after all, in Unetane Tokef, who shall live and who shall die? Who will enjoy tranquility and who will suffer? It's not as if it's not clear what we need to do. The problem is, for many of us, you, like me, may get lost in the Shuvah process. Is it simply about turning and facing God? After all, that's what the word shuv implies. We are physically turning and facing God. Or should we look at the word kippur from Yom Kippur? Are you familiar with where it comes from? Are you knowledgeable that it's not necessarily even originally a Hebrew word, but it comes from Syriac, which is a cognate of Aramaic, meaning to wipe away. Also in Akkadian, it means also in the same regard, wipe away. So maybe Yom Kippur should be recalled as the day, not necessarily of turning to God, but of wiping away of all of our sins. Is that what we need to do when we return to God? That we wipe everything away? I don't exactly think so. I wish that that was the possibility, that it was just that easy. After all, a little bit of Windex and some really good cleaning can go a long way in making something look shiny, which I think was the purpose of Yom Kippur initially, that they would make the temple look shiny and new because the temple absorbed sin and they had to clean it out really good. But Shuvah, I think, has more to it. There's a different connotation. We're returning to God. And it's hard work. It's hard to do it on your own. The idea from Pirkei Avot, in a place where there is no person, strive to be a person, I'm frequently reminded, is actually a part of the Shuvah process. But I want to share a different story, one from the Talmud, one that I think kind of highlights the hard work that Shuvah actually involves. And it goes like this. There was a rabbi, Rabbi Gamliel, who was traveling by ship, and he saw far off on the horizon the hull of a wrecked ship. Immediately he took to grief, knowing that if there was a wrecked ship, surely there were souls lost in the water. And knowing, as he had, that it was in fact one of his dear friends, Rabbi Akiva, who was supposed to be on that very ship. And after sitting Shiva for 7 days, he rose from his mourning to the yeshiva, and he sat down to study. Rabbi Gamliel looked up and he saw none other than Rabbi Akiva walking in the door. Rabbi Gamliel, thinking that he saw a ghost, of course had to make sure that Akiva was in fact alive and with us. "My son," he said, "who salvaged you from the waters?" Akiva says, "Daf shel sifni." The daf of the boat appeared to me, and to every wave that came my way, I bowed my head. What is the fascinating meaning of the word daf? Well, here it means plank, that he grabbed a plank, a piece of the shipwreck, and he kept his head going and rode the waves till he arrived at shore safe and sound. 7 days it took him to get out of the water. But if we look at the word daf in a different way, it also means page, as in the page of a Talmud, the front and the back of a Talmud. And that for Akiva, what he grabbed hold of in the moment that he was, in fact, coming back into himself, coming out of the craziness of the water, was his flotation device. It was perhaps God. And I'm reminded that if we insert the word daf as in the Talmud, a Talmud appeared to me, and every wave and every challenge in life that came my way, I bowed my head and I held on to my faith and continued forward. Jeremiah also reminds us in similar imagery that we can be blown around by the vicissitudes of life, but if we hold fast onto the tree of knowledge or the tree of life, it is rooted down into the earth and we ourselves will be grounded. These stories remind us that as part of the Shuvah process of returning to God, I think we also have to ask God to help us along that path. That it's not so easy to find out exactly where to go. But in order to do that, just as Akiva had to tuck his head in facing the waves, and Jeremiah talks about grasping onto that tree, we have to have a little bit of humility and some vulnerability. To be able to see ourselves deeply and keenly, to hold up a mirror and recognize the aspects of us that really need that kippur, as it is described, that wiping off, that polishing, that true work, that returning to God. It is a powerful thing to recognize that in total we are enough. It is an equally powerful thing to recognize that we need to learn about who we are and to work ourselves to become more and better and whole. It is equally scary when we're faced and confronted with that very challenge, to feel as if our world is like an ocean, that we are like Akiva, overwhelmed, drowning. And there are certain times, though, when all we want to do is splash around and not sure where to splash. But I'll remind us that just as Akiva did, of holding on to that daf and ducking and bowing, it is my hope and prayer that Shabbat Shuvah reminds us that that's one way, one path of Shuvah back to God. And may we be inspired this high holiday season to allow that to be our ways back to God. Shabbat Shalom.